welcome to the Wandering Creatives podcast. I'm your host, Allie Coots, and joining me today is the founder of Honeypress, Karina Zimmerman. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Honeypress is a Filipina-owned stationery boutique based out of Clayton, North Carolina, and they curate specialty paper goods, party supplies, and novelty gifts, as well as unique, high-quality Japanese stationery products. And I have to say, it's all just like adorable. It's the cutest.
Thank you.
I was looking through your website and I was just like, oh my gosh, like I can never go there because I want to buy freaking everything.
Oh my gosh, that's me.
and it's like I'm a huge fan of stationery anyways. I kind of like hoard stationery products. Mm-hmm. And stickers and pins and all of the stationery goodies. So Honeypress is kind of like my version of heaven. Like I feel like I could just get lost in there and looking through all the amazing stuff that you have. And I'm super excited and I can't wait to hear kind of about your journey to opening Honeypress and kind of what your story is and what the story behind the store is. So Karina, if you could please introduce yourself and just share a little bit about who you are and where you're from.
So as you said, I'm Karina Zimmerman. I was born in California and raised in North Carolina. So I moved at a very inopportune time, like right before 7th grade when everyone's already established their friendship group. And you have a huge culture shift from, being in a heavily Asian populated area to the South.
Yes.
So that was a huge thing. But my family's here, my husband's family's here. So being back, this is home for me. Being back home is completely surreal. So I'm a mom. I love reality TV show and just Bachelor in Paradise, The Circle. Just let me watch it because it makes me feel better about my life. And then obviously I'm a lover of all things pen and paper. So I'm the same as you. As like I go into a stationery shop. I'm like, how many hours can I spend just looking at things? And it's hard in COVID because you're technically not supposed to be touching things, but you're like, I want to touch everything.
Exactly.
But yeah, and I'm also a military spouse. So my husband's active duty Air Force. And so that's what's kind of moved us around. And we worked really hard to finally get ourselves in a place where we can return back to North Carolina. We're hoping, fingers crossed, that we can settle here.
Very nice. Oh, that's really interesting. So you've stood up Honeypress while also, well, one, you have another job as well, which again, very impressive.
Day job.
To run a shop because Honeypress is like a brick and mortar, like you have a storefront, right?
It actually isn't. So when I started Honeypress, it was legit in the middle of the pandemic. We had just moved and I was already working my day job. I worked for state and it was one of those things where we were in a really good place and financially we were like, I've always talked about owning my own store forever. And I didn't realize how much I talked about it until I opened it. And everyone's like, oh yeah, you finally got your store. Oh, you finally are doing this. I'm like, did I really talk about it that much? Because I didn't think I did. And so like I don't have the finances to open up a brick and mortar yet. Plus we're waiting for the perfect location to kind of open up. So we've kind of just been, doing pop-ups here and there. And I opened up in April, which for any creatives who know, that's a really horrible time to open because you're entering into Q2 and it's pretty much dead business in Q2 because you're past the holidays, everyone's graduated, no one's really shopping during the summer. But yeah, but it's picked back up. So I'm feeling a little bit more encouraged about how things have grown since.
Well, that's what I didn't do my research very well, I guess, which
you're good.
It's on par for me, but pop-ups, I think that's why I thought you had a mortar, like an actual location, but yeah, you do a lot of pop-ups, which I love, but that's awesome. I totally thought like Honeypress, you had your own like brick and mortar shop.
Oh my gosh, that is the dream. So I'm like, I keep telling myself, it's like, I keep looking at like the different, it's like, oh, retail for lease. Oh, that spot's open. This is really cute. Would this work? And then my husband's like, you still have your day job.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting until I fully retire from my day job, which don't worry, it'll still be in like 5 years. 5 years is kind of like my deadline.
Mm-hmm.
It will happen. It's just a matter of, I've got two littles in school still, and we still have a lot of personal debt to deal with.
Oh my God, right.
So this is just kind of like starting it up and seeing how things are being received within the community, what works, what doesn't work, and then kind of evolve it from there.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah, you do a lot. Like, okay, so mom of two, you work, you have another job, and you have Honeypress, and then also wife, right? That's that's another
that's a whole other thing.
Another job. And yeah, that's like super impressive, because I just do this right now, and I'm like, I can barely handle it. That's a lot to like keep you on your toes.
Oh yeah, but I love it. I think that's the biggest thing, is that if I didn't love it, it wouldn't be worth it. And and I always joke with my husband, is like, I too am a stationery hoarder. So I usually and I'm all about planners. Like, planners are my big thing.
God, yes.
And he's just like, you have all these planners. Why do you have all these planners? I was like, to make it seem like I have my life together, of course. Exactly. But now I have an excuse. I'm like, okay, I'm buying stuff, but it's for other people and not myself. He's like, okay, as long as you can say that at the end of the day, you're fine.
That's a brilliant plan. So how did you get started with like stickers and stationery? Was it something you were always into?
Yeah. So how like every little kid has a thing that they're obsessed with. Like my oldest son, he's currently in his Lego phase, is building everything. Like I give him kits and he like completely demolishes them and puts together something brand new. I'm like, okay, that's really cool. Then my youngest, oh my gosh, huge garbage can, but I love him. He's always obsessed with being in the kitchen. He wants to be a part of it, even though he's like 2. And I'm like, okay, you're gonna burn your hand on the stove. Like, can we not? It's like, let me give you some like play utensils or something. But for me, it was stationery. There was this store that I used to go to as a kid. I don't know if it still exists anymore, but it's called Imaginarium. And it was one of those toy stores that had the big door, and then it has like the little door that the little people can walk through. And it was great. And so I would go in there, and this is huge wall of stickers. And they have like the really shiny ones, like the holographic, and it's just the sticker sheets. And my thing is like, whenever I was good, I didn't ask for toys. I asked for stickers or books, and I would never use them. I would just like hoard them. I would put them in my little sticker book. And it was just pretty. It was like, you don't have to have a purpose for them, but it was just something that I love to collect. And then there's this other shop people will be a little bit more familiar with called Sanrio. So that's where like Hello Kitty and all the other characters are from. My mom took me to Sanrio for my first grade school supplies, which this is so weird for me because my son's in first grade now. And so I'm like, oh, this is like really taking me back. And I had like this really cool pencil case that had like the pencil sharpener built in it, and the pencils with some of the characters on it, and like such random stuff. But it just kind of start of my very long obsession with pretty pens and paper. Like it was fully functional, but it was different. It was pretty. It was cute. And so I was like, I continued on pretty much like all through high school. But, like I said, I moved out to the South in the middle of middle school. So there's really nothing like those over in North Carolina. So every time my mom would go on a business trip, she's like, what do you want? Do you want toys? Do you want magazines or whatever? I'm like, can you like stock up on my pens, the ones that are like 0.38 and the notebooks with the really fine paper? She's like, you just need to come with me. I'm like, yes, I do need to come with you because I'm very particular about my stuff. Like my husband learned that he can't buy me stationery because he'll be like, that's cute, but let me pick out my own.
let me get the good stuff.
But yeah, and then in grad school, I discovered the planner community on Instagram, which if you're in it, like it's a whole thing. We could have a whole other podcast about it.
It's amazing.
It's amazing, but also very intense. Yes. And so, yeah. And I don't know, as weird as it sounds, stationery is what kind of keeps me grounded. So My husband, like I said, is active duty military, and he was away in Korea for a year when my oldest son was 1 going on 2. So, great time to be alone with a kid. And, I kind of threw myself into journaling and planning on paper as a way to help me cope with my mental health. And since it's been this solace for me, so it sounds weird, but everyone has that thing that grounds them. Some find it in athletics, some find it in outdoors, some find it in podcasting or being creative. And mine just happens to be stationery.
Oh, I love that. I don't know if there's like a different name for it, but I call it sticker journaling.
Yeah.
Because I have a box of just stickers that I've collected over the years. And, it's the same thing. I love them, but I'm like, I should use these somehow.
It's like, you'll find a perfect moment.
Yeah. But so what I started doing was like, because I journal a little bit as well. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to journal, but then I'm going to kind of like build or express myself through my stickers and incorporate that into the journaling as well. So I'll like, have like a paragraph or something I've written, and then just like this wild like sticker scene underneath whatever I've written. And it's a way for me to like use my stickers, but in a meaningful, expressive way to me, I guess, if that makes any sense.
No, that totally makes sense. Like it's that same thing. It's like, okay, yeah, I have all these things, but I want to make sure that I'm using it to express myself, to remind myself, like, how was I feeling on this particular day? Am I decorating it just for the sake of decorating it, or there's a theme? And so I totally get that.
Yeah, that's how I've started using mine, because I was like, oh, they're just so like beautiful, and they're just sitting in this like dark box. So.
Oh, trust me, I have boxes upon boxes of my like planner stickers.
Oh my god,
they're hidden, and I'm like, oh, I need to really de-stash these because I haven't touched these in like a year.
And like I would die to like, see your sticker collection. I bet it's amazing.
Do you know what goes great with listening to podcasts? If you said a warm drink, you're absolutely right. Just imagine you're sitting back, you're listening to your favorite podcast, all while holding a nice, cute-ass mug in your hand with your favorite hot beverage in it. If you're wondering, where can I get a mug like that? Well, you're in luck. You can swing by the Coots Creations Cute Coffee and Tea Mugs Etsy shop. They've got everything from enamel coffee cups to travel mugs, all featuring adorable original artwork. Head over to etsy.com/shop/Coots Creations and use promo code WANDER for 10% off any mug.
You've kind of always had this love for stickers and stationery that like, started when you were younger and has now kind of like blossomed into this awesome career. Like you have this amazing shop, Honeypress. And so you said you opened it in April. Was that April this year?
April of this year. So yes, right back dab in the middle of the pandemic. And like, I still can't believe that it's been less than a year since I've opened it up, because I feel like this planning process started probably like at the beginning of the pandemic, honestly, just because I had a lot of extra time on my hands. So I would just start like writing out ideas, and I'm like, well, I'm kind of getting to that point. So I work in public service. So I'm like so close to getting my loans forgiven, fingers crossed it sticks. And I'm like, okay, before I go into a different kind of debt, I need to get rid of this debt first. So that's kind of been my holdback. I was like, okay, I need to make sure that like before I get into that, I take care of my personal stuff first.
I feel like that is something that so many people can relate to. I personally can, like, because that was one of my things. I was like, okay, I get rid of the student loan debt before you like try to, fully live the dream. And so I feel you on that. Yeah, I guess I'm like, I don't know, I'm shocked, I guess, maybe that you just opened in April of this year, because when I look at your website and your socials and everything, it seems like so established, I guess maybe is the thing to say. And like, it's so, I don't know, it feels like you've been like in the business for a while.
So it's really funny because a lot of it is like over the years, like even before I started thinking seriously about opening up the shop, I follow a lot of different artists on Instagram, and, you know, like some of the artists that I have stocked in my store, I've been following them for like 6 years. And so I had a very clear vision of, okay, this is what I want to be in my shop eventually, somewhere down the road. Hopefully they're still creating. And I actually started my undergrad as a multimedia arts and design major. And after the first semester, I was so completely bored with it because I was like, this is stuff that I learned in high school. Like, how is this helping me? I seriously changed my mind about what I wanted to do post-graduation. I think like 4 different times. How I graduated in 4 years from undergrad, I will never know. I guess liberal arts colleges, you can do that. And I mean, shoulda, coulda, woulda. There's some things that I wish I had done, like accounting.
Oh my God.
Don't get me started on business accounting. Was having a conversation about taxes the other day, and I'm like, oh, I thought I was doing it right. but yeah, so like a lot of it is just, I'm thankful for themes being a thing. But when I first started, again, thinking seriously about it, I was like, okay, what's my aesthetic? What is it that I kind of want to be the forefront of it? It's like, because if you look at different brands and stationery stores around, like you have your very minimalistic or high-end stationery. You have the store that shall not be named because they're terrible to create. And then you have like the very snarky and bright bubblegum pop ones, which I love, but that's just like, I wanted to make sure that the store was a reflection of me, and that whenever you look at my items, that you see me in something. And I tell that to people in person too. They're like, your stuff is so cute. I'm like, thank you. And I'm like, that's like a reflection of me. So I'm I take it as a high compliment whenever people are like, I love your stuff. I'm like, thank you. This means so much to me. So
like it's a piece of me.
It really is. It really is. It is my brain baby. It's my third child.
Yeah. I'm looking at your Instagram right now and I'm just like, oh, I love it. I love all of it.
Yeah.
So you said you'd been planning, kind of starting, we'll say a year and a half ago, kind of like thinking about opening the shop. Was there like a specific moment where you were like, you know what, now is the time, like do or die, I'm doing this? Or did it all I don't know, did it just kind of like naturally just feel right?
So it was one of those things that, like I said, I've constantly been talking about it. Like my friends who grew up with me knew about it. My college friends, my husband, my family, they all knew. Like once I opened it up, they're like, oh yeah, this is your thing. I'm like, okay. So I think my first memory was like in 5th grade when I started decorating like these little reinforcements, you know, the little stickers that is supposed to go on paper so you don't tear the 3-hole punch and you end up tearing them anyways. I used to like decorate those in class. And I remember telling my friend that I was like, one day I'm going to own my own office supply shop and people can be creative and you can have cool, unique stuff like this. And then like, I think I just kind of like tossed that idea aside because I didn't think that was a thing. And of course, back in 2000, it wasn't really a thing.
Yeah.
And I've always loved stationery, Japanese stationery. It holds a special place in my heart. There's a store called Kinokuniya that's everywhere in California. And that's where I first encountered like the fine Japanese stationery. It's so pretty. And it's just, there's so many items there that you just can't find anywhere else. And Japanese stationery, heck, Asian stationery, there's a certain aesthetic to it. It's clean, it's quality, it's affordable, and it's cute and unique. So that's where I kind of like brought that to me. So when I moved to Cary around 2002, North Carolina doesn't have anything like that. It was like, you know, it's a South. There was a very small Asian population there at the time. And this is in the age before you can get stuff from Amazon easily. And you know, I would have to wait until another trip back to California to get stuck on that stuff. So after I graduated from college, moved to Florida for grad school, and then also to be with my husband because military, of course. When he returned from Korea, we ended up going back to California, but the not so fun part. And then, of course, the pandemic happened. So the pandemic happened, so we're kind of stuck there, and all of our family's over here. And we're like, we just really need to get back. And when we were finally able to move back, it was like, okay, this is really great. Everything is working out. Like I had a job secured before we even had a house secured. And I was just like, we know we're going to be here. So it was I feel very blessed. I mean, because I know not a lot of people were that lucky in the midst of the pandemic. A lot of people lost jobs. If they had to do a move, there was like tremendous loss. Like they weren't able to be with family and have that support system. So being able to do that was just kind of a huge blessing in disguise for us to finally get over here. And then I think it was about, I want to say Christmas time of last year. We had been saving up. We ended up saving up quite a bit because we had the boys out of school for a while at the beginning because my oldest son was diagnosed type 1 diabetic. So we're like, it's best that he's not in school as we figure out how to manage our lives around it. I'm working from home full time, so it should be fine. Like I'll be able to manage it. And I was having conversations with my husband. I was like, okay, we have all this extra money. Like granted, we have a debt payoff plan. That's already sorted. But what are we going to do with this extra money? Like, how are we going to invest it? And it was actually my husband who was the one who brought it up. And he was like, you're constantly talking about this. You should really try it, go for it. I'm like, no, I shouldn't. Like, this is not the time. It's like, our son's like immunocompromised. Like, we're in the midst of a pandemic. Like, how am I going to do this? Well, in February, there's a certain store whose initials are PS, and they put in thousands of dollars of orders to small creatives sometime in February. And those small businesses, of course, in the middle of a pandemic, all these creatives are like, oh my gosh, that's so great. It's like, this is our first big order in like a year. 2 weeks later, that company declared bankruptcy.
Oh, wow.
And so one of the things about, the industry is that whenever you have a big store like that, there's something called net 60, net 90 terms, which basically means that that company is not required to pay out the bill for what they purchase up to 60 days out, up to 90 days out. Well, if you declare bankruptcy, those smaller creatives, they cannot request for that bill to be paid. So as such, they lost thousands upon thousands of dollars. And it broke my heart because like that was the only place around the area that I was like, oh my gosh, this is as close as I'm going to get to what I want. And I'm like, it's like, that is just so disgusting to me that you would take advantage of that. And I was like, oh yeah, it's like, I want to start thinking seriously and building up a like business plan of like, what can I do for these smaller creatives, like with my limited resources. So I started like writing up. There was this one grant that someone forwarded to me, and I'm like, okay, I'll just apply for it, and if I get it, that'll be my sign. That'll be my sign that I made it. So I had a lot of fun building up the business plan. It wasn't anything fancy, but I was just kind of like, this is my vision. This is what I plan to do. This is my timeline. These are the types of products that I want to include and how I want to embed myself into the community. I didn't get it, but at the same time, like the fact that I had each of these details like thought through and it was starting to come together, that was kind of like I really want to pursue this. And so I continue to have a conversation with my husband. He's like, I know you have a lot on your plate, but if you really want to do it and your heart's in it, then I support you 100%. And like, honestly, I couldn't have done it without him. And I filed for the business in end of February. I think I got all my paperwork back in March and then booked my first pop-up in April. And that's kind of the long story of how Honeypress came to be.
Well, that it's so wonderful that you have a spouse that is supportive and kind of encourage you to make your dream become kind of a reality. Like that's amazing. Love that. And I've spoken with a lot of creatives, and it's always like so touching to hear, because a lot of them have spouses that do like similar, that are, very similar to that, like encouraging and like kind of pushing them to be creative or to open that shop. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, we've both sacrificed a lot for each other. And I think this was kind of his love letter to me, is that, he is very much under the things like, you have to sacrifice a lot as being a military spouse. I had to sacrifice being away from my family, being away from him for a year and whenever he is deployed. And so he's like, you deserve something for yourself. Because, as spouses, as, moms, we tend to like focus on the others and want everything for the other people. And then forget about ourselves. So I am very grateful to have that support system.
You're also like, listen, you're going to Korea. I'm going to need you to bring me back some stationery.
Unfortunately, he didn't know where to go to look for it. So I was like, okay, so you're going to bring me back, right? Eventually down the line, whenever things open back up and we're not fans of God.
You're like, here's a 5-page list of what I'm going to need you to get while you're there.
This episode of the Wandering Creatives podcast is sponsored by Coots Creations, branding and marketing for creatives by creatives. Coots Creations serves small businesses, entrepreneurs, and creatives throughout the country with branding, marketing, and social media management. We accomplish this by creating unique graphics, a cohesive visual brand, and content that tells your brand's story and builds trust with your customers. Visit cootscreations.com and book your free consultation today.
What are some things that you kind of have learned through your experience of standing up your own business, or do you have any tips for others that might be looking to start their own business, especially in the time of the pandemic?
Yes. So first off, if you decide to do it, like fully commit to it, recognize that, yes, you are a business owner. You are fully doing this. I can't tell you, when I first opened up, they're like, oh my gosh, this is your business. I'm like, no, it's not really that big of a deal. Like, I haven't really been getting that many sales. It's kind of just there. No, you are fully a business owner. Own it, embrace it, like know it. So know your worth, know that this is already a huge step for you. Second, definitely write up an outline about what do you want out of your business? What's the focus? Who are you trying to sell to? And what is your purpose in providing your service or product? What's going to keep you going and how you want to grow it. So my purpose, which is what I constantly have to return to, because, you have those days you're like, I just want to end it all. I just want to stop. I want to close down the shop. Like, no more. I'm hoarding all of the rest of my inventory to myself. Like, no more. No, that's not going to happen. Not anytime soon. But you have to remember is like, there was a reason why you wanted to do this. So what was it? And mine is like, the fact that it's like more than 15 years after I first moved to the Triangle, that even with the immense growth of the Asian community in the area and the immense growth of the Triangle period, there was still nothing like this. And I'm like, how in the world is that not there? So also identify, it's like, okay, what are you offering that someone else may not necessarily be offering? And it doesn't necessarily have to be strictly online. It could be within your local community. It could be within your Instagram community. It can be within your religious community. So wherever it is that you may see. And even if you see someone else doing something similar, that's not to say that you can't do it as well. Because, there's this whole thing about community over competition is that everyone wants to do similar things, but they have their own vision and approach to it. So like, I see there are I'm not creative by any means. I cannot draw for the life of me, not even hangman.
No, I see. I have to dispute that claim because when we first started talking, you said the same thing. I'm not a creative, but it'd be great to be on the podcast. And I was like, yes, absolutely. Because you are creative, just in a different way. Because when I look at how you put everything together, that requires creativity, because it is beautifully done. Like, you have a wonderful aesthetic and like the way you organize things. And yes, you are creative. It's like what you said, when you become a business owner, you have to own it. And I'm telling you the same thing, because
I do appreciate it. It's always been weird for me, especially when I started applying for different pop-ups and markets in the area. They're like, it's like, oh, like, how much of this do you actually make yourself? Or I'll have people come up to me. It's like, oh, did you make this? I'm like, no, I just picked it out. I thought it was cute.
It takes, I'm not even kidding. Like, you have to have an eye for stuff, right? And like have it go together and like be cohesive. And yeah, it is very much like being a graphic designer or an interior designer. Like, you have to have an eye for it, because otherwise your shop is, it's just this wild assortment of random things. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna dispute that. And I think you should be saying that you are creative.
Thank
because
you.
It does require creativity to do what you do.
Yeah, thank you. I think my last main tip for those who want to start up any sort of business is that don't feel like you have to succeed right away. I had a really great first month of sales. My launch was something to be desired, but like my first pop-up was great. My second pop-up was great. And then, like I said, I started in quarter 2, which is a terrible time to start things. Don't do that. But so I got really discouraged because of the time of year. Like, you know, the pop-ups that I went to afterwards, they weren't gaining a lot of traction. I was picking pop-ups just based off of the cost to have a booth there rather than the quality of the marketing. And so I got really discouraged around that time. And I think that without my community backing me and being like, no, just keep going. Like, it's going to turn around. It's not even back to school season yet. Your office supplies, your school supplies, like that's going to be your season. Okay. Yeah. I'll wait for that. And then sure enough, like once we got into like Japanese planner pre-order season, which starts as early as August, can you believe, for 2022 planners? Like,
as a planner lover, yes, I can believe that.
Like usually most like stateside planners say you don't even start that pre-order season until October, but Japanese planner season is all the way up in August. I'm like, this is a lot. This is so much. There's so much to do. But no, it's been really great. It's been received really well. And so like, just remember that your business is going to be up and down during different seasons, but don't be discouraged by that. Just, you know, keep going, keep your go-to people that are going to be there to remind you why you did this, because you're going to be in the headspace where you're like, I don't remember anything. But they'll remind you for sure.
Well, I think those are all like absolutely fantastic tips. And yeah, own it, get your outline together, know what your reason is. Like that alone, having an outline and like knowing why you're doing what you're doing will keep you going and then just know that you don't have to be successful right off the bat. I mean, I've heard oftentimes it takes at least a year for businesses to really like kind of get out there, and then it's just growing from there. So if you take off in a month, oh yeah, good for you, man. That's amazing. So, well, I mean, I kind of talked about this a little bit, but like you have a very good eye and like aesthetic going for your shop. So how do you decide what you're going to carry in your shop?
So, like I said before, when I first started out, I was picking items out by asking myself, what will people buy? And that was a terrible approach. So obviously you want people to buy your product, but I needed to shift gears to make my vision come to light. So I pick items that I know that I like or have experience with. And I also try to find things that you can't really find in store. So if you look at the pens I sell, you probably won't find anything larger than a 0.5 point. And if you do, it would be like, I'm thinking about my inventory calendar of things I'm going to be purchasing in the future. I might get a mechanical pencil that's 1.3 because you can't find anything like that in store. And, you know, with pens, they're the types of things that you want to try on in person before fully committing. So other products, they have some sort of personal connection to me. So I have stickers and washi tape that are anime themed or K-pop themed or Filipino themed. And like that is me on a plate. Like I'm a nerd. So it's like I grew up on like Shonen Jump and like Pokemon and Sailor Moon, like the millionth iteration of Sailor Moon. I actually just launched these Sailor Moon pens in shop and I'm so giddy about them.
No.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to look at those.
And I have a few local creatives, like Little Lovely Studio, who makes these beautiful North Carolina stickers that have mountains in the backdrop, and has my love for Asheville because that's where I went to undergrad and that's where I met my husband. It's like we went to UNC Asheville, and so that's our thing. It's like I don't hike, but I love looking at them. So I have products that focus on mental health because that's something that I believe needs to really be advocated for. And again, stationery has kind of been my self-care, so to speak. Of course, there's like the silly little items like candles from the card bureau that they smell great, but they also have these great snarky little sayings. And like I'm usually when I first meet somebody, I'm very quiet, but I have like this inner snarky person like waiting to burst out. And then there's the puns. So again, I asked myself, how am I reflected in these products, and how am I also supporting my community with them as well? And then, of course, can you access these items easily anywhere else? So that's been kind of my approach. That's not going to be the same for every shop. Other shops, like, okay, you have a certain aesthetic. You want it to be minimal. You want to be high end. You want to be like loud and bright. But like really, for me, it's how is this a reflection of me?
I love that. And I appreciate that so much because I feel, again, personally, I don't know if this, I imagine this is something that other kind of creatives and makers struggle with, is finding that balance between, do I create things that are going to sell because it's what people want, or do I create things that represent me, that I enjoy making, that kind of like what you said, like how is this a reflection of me, and kind of like finding that balance.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, that's, I think, a part of any small creative just starting out. And like, I know for me, like my shop is very small. I don't stock any more than 10 of any item at a time because I just don't have the space. I don't have a physical store, even though that's my ultimate stretch goal. Once I have that, I can expand. Like when I finally figured out my aesthetic and what I wanted to focus on, I did a deep dive on researching other creative brands on Instagram and this wholesale website called Fair. So I think it's really important to link your identity to your creative brand, like give a face to the brand. Like I'm not one to speak because I hate putting my face on Instagram. Like whenever I do a Facebook Live, I put like the little cartoon eyes on my face. But like, I know that those were the creatives that I was drawn to, the ones who had a very clearly defined identity of, or like, this is them, this is how their brand represents them, and this is what they wanted to do. So when I decided early on that I wanted to place BIPOC creatives as a priority, that was actually a lot harder to find because there are those who are like, okay, yeah, this is me. But others, like, I had to dig and dig and dig to find these creatives. I'm like, it's not necessarily reflected in their work. It's not, they have a picture of a flower or one of their stickers. I'm like, that doesn't tell me who you are as a person. Yeah. So I can't necessarily feed off of that. So having them say, it's like, yes, I'm woman owned. Yes, I'm Black owned. Yes, I'm Asian owned. Or like, it's obvious to show that you're an ally within your work. And, that makes it easier for those who are searching for those types of products to bring them into their store. And then also, like, there are other questions that I have that, you want to, it's that quick digesting culture that, I want to know things without having to dig for it. So if I'm going to someone's site, it's like, what's their identity? Do they even offer wholesale? Like that was even a huge thing. I was like, do you even offer wholesale? Like that, not a lot of people say that. Do they have minimum requirements for purchasing? This is important information to have at least in your frequently asked questions, if not explicitly in your bio, because people will do research, but if they don't find that information right off the bat, then they're going to assume that that's not something that you're offering and move on. So that's why I put it out there that I'm a Filipino-owned business. I'm an Asian business, so that people who are searching for those types of businesses to support can find it easily.
Those are really, really good tips. So one of the other questions I really wanted to ask you was, what are some of your favorite things that you currently have in your shop, and why do you love them so much?
All of them. But really, if I had to choose, okay, I'd have to go with the Jibun Techo planners, my Maramon Labo notebooks, my Jetstream multi-pen, which is like 0.38, which I love. And let's see, my Proudly Asian sticker from Kila Designs, my Philippine Stars washi from Le Petit Elephant, and the achievement stickers from Quotations. So like I said, like it's a complete aesthetic, and these items are kind of like a reflection of me. So with the Labo notebooks, they're just so cool because it's so simple. It's like a simple vinyl color, but the colors are bright, they're beautiful, they're smooth, and you just want to touch the paper. It sounds weird, but I just want to stroke it like all the time. That's like it's like, okay, calm down, stroke the paper.
Oh my gosh, you're making me just want to like go and buy.
But it's really cool.
I can't.
Yeah. It's cool because it's like 3mm grid type. So you can really use it for anything. So you can use it as a journal, you can use it as a sketchbook. But yeah, it can really be used for anything. And then the Jibun Techo planner is like, it's a whole thing. Just you have to look it up on YouTube. It's JIBUN and TECHO. And the paper is super thin, which usually I'm not into. I'm like, I don't like things are bleeding. But the layout is very functional. And unlike a lot of yearly planners, you can actually start your planner a couple months prior to the start of the year. Ooh. And then it also has like a monthly view where you can plan 2 months into the following year. So it's really nice and very functional. And they have like weekly and daily options. I'm going with the daily for my business planner. So I'm very excited about that.
Oh my gosh. I'm like on your website looking at them and I'm like, oh,
they're so pretty.
They're so pretty. The yellow and the blue. Oh
yeah. Yes. So I'm so excited because, I mean, like I said, once this podcast comes out, they'll be fully in store, but I've just been waiting for them to finally come in. And they're shipped to me and they should arrive tomorrow. And I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh. That's gotta be like one of the most like joyous days ever is when you get a new box.
Like, for UPS, I'll be like out there sitting. It's like, is it here yet? Is it here yet?
I really loved hearing how you are incorporating who you are and your identity into things that you're selling. Like that's wonderful. I'm just like, yeah, that's great. I love it. I love it. So as we wrap up, do you have, any upcoming pop-ups or maybe like product releases that you'd like to share?
Let's see. So
November, December-ish.
November, December. I'm thinking it's like, so we're obviously in the holiday season. So if you are trying to get your holiday stuff, I suggest ordering as early as possible. I know you're like, save Thanksgiving, but Thanksgiving, they don't have any things to shop for. So what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
But postage rates are going up and there's supply shortages. So make sure that you're putting in those orders early. I know I think I'm doing my holiday cutoff for shipping around December 8th-ish time. I haven't solidified that date yet, but I'll be posting my holiday items like in October. So sorry, Halloween people, there's really no items for me to sell. Yeah, and I have a ton of pop-up events coming up in the next couple months around the Triangle. And I am working on a fun planner project with Rachel Ann Letters that will hopefully launch before 2022 or at the beginning of 2022. We're still trying to find printers. But just as a hint, like I mentioned, my son is type 1 diabetic. So it's something surrounding that. So stay tuned. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, pretty much we have that. And then I'll be going into Q1, getting ready for all of the Valentine's and Lunar New Year stuff.
Ooh. So, yes. Yeah. And so if folks want to kind of like keep up with what you got going on, where can they do that?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and Facebook. The handle is at honeypress.nc. And my website is at www.honeypress-nc.com. And unfortunately, wasn't able to get the dot in there, all that fun stuff. I am launching a YouTube channel for the shop sometime in October, so stay tuned. Well, if by the time this comes out, it'll already have been out. So I'm going to be doing a lot of planner walkthroughs, reviews, gift guides, and then most of my pop-up reminders and product spotlights are on Instagram.
Amazing. Karina, thank you. Like this has been absolutely so wonderful getting to know you a little bit better and to also hear about your story and Honeypress. And I can't thank you enough for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. And I really enjoyed putting my story out there. And I'm so glad that you have this platform.
Listeners, as Karina mentioned, you can follow Honeypress on Instagram at honeypress.nc. Their website is honeypress-nc.com. And they're also on Facebook at honeypress-North Carolina. -NC. And again, I would like to thank Karina for being on today's episode. And I want to thank you for tuning in and listening. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, whatever, you can text or call us on our hotline at 252-419-6004, and we will include them on a future episode of the podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram at wandering_creative_ and check out our website, cootscreations.com. And don't forget to like, rate, and review the Wandering Creatives podcast.
This has been a Coots Creations production. Follow the show on Instagram at wandering_creative_ and on Twitter at wandering_pod. For more information, go to cootscreations.com. Like, rate, review, and subscribe. To sponsor the Wandering Creatives podcast, visit www.cootscreations.com/podcast-sponsorship-opportunities. You can also click the link in the episode description below. To be a guest or a featured maker on the podcast, click the link in our Instagram bio or contact us at cootscreationsllc@gmail.com.